Hello, hello, hello. So let's talk about the Eostrid. I'm just gonna assume it's Eostrid fusion plan. I am basically a free to play player. I only say basically because I did take a month break, and then when I did take that break, I did come back to this juicy viable path, which I did end up buying at some point. I was like, why not? It's not gonna hurt. But I am essentially free to play. I was never a low spender or anything. Um, I've always done my best to grind out daily without spending any money. So I am essentially a free to play account. Um, Revival Path has not been extremely impactful to my account since coming back. So there's really no big changes. But regardless, this is something I think other free to play people might like, considering that this is something that I struggled with for a long time when playing Raid. I didn't finish my first fusion until probably after 9 months of playing nonstop every single day. So yeah, it was a long road of progress and a rough learning curve since it was my first gotcha. But so let's talk about some things. How can a free to play player complete fusions? Right. So first thing I would say is set daily goals. For instance, the first things we have going on right now are going to be the Fire Night Tournament and the Champion Training, and then tomorrow we get Dungeon Divers. So I'm not going crazy or anything. I have been holding on to this energy knowing that the fusion is coming up. I have the energy from the revival path, which isn't too crazy. I have the tag team energy coming up in a couple days. I've got energy saved up from the fusion warm up, and then I made sure to go all the way through the artifact enhanced event, even knowing that we do have a couple coming up. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. I do have some energy here, so I got 300 energy here, and then also I did just have my monthly reset happen. So here's the weekly energy that I'm sitting on, and then here's also the monthly energy I have ready for the fusion events coming up. So first off, like I said, set daily goals. The question is, how many points do you need for the tournaments or events that are currently going on right now? When should you spend gems, right? So are you saving energy? Are you double dipping? What's going on? So day one, the focus really should be champion training. I agree with that. Everybody's going to tell you to do champion training the first day just because Dungeon Divers tomorrow, and then using that Fire Knight energy is a lot better for points with Dungeon Divers than it is doing farming campaign. So you aren't really missing out too much. I've still opted to do some Fire Knight today, double dipping because I do have a Fire Knight team that I will show on stream where I'm finally able to do it with food. I'm using Regrosh and two Allures. 100% success rate, gets you through it, no big deal. So I'm using Fire Knight to double dip with food. Also, anytime I'm doing any event, it's always in preparation for a champion training tournament, right? So as you can see, I've already gotten the first bottom award. I'm currently at 1,205 points. That's because I always have food or chicken saved up from doing other events. I'm always trying to do food with events or any tournaments for the spider. Literally every dungeon I'm trying to do food, right? So I have these saved up. We got some 5 stars that I'm waiting to use. I've used up all my 3-star chickens that I've saved from pulling shards or from campaign farming or from other things, just from leveling up from mystery shards that I pull for the daily challenges or daily missions or daily quests, whatever you want to call them. So day one, focus on champion training is probably the best thing to do. If you happen to have Fire Night with food, a lot of people don't have that. You should do that. Again, day one, do that. Day two is where the real focus is. This is where I'm going to be still double dipping. And again, I said set daily goals. So what are going to be my daily goals, right? So the Fire Night tournament is going to be a 3-day tournament. And to get the fragment fusion, it's going to be 750 points you want to average a day, just to make sure you reach that, right? Now, due to there being a Dungeon Divers event tomorrow, I'm actually just going to go all the way to the 2750 to get the chicken. This just makes more sense. Dungeon Diver points are very high. It's likely going to be somewhere between 3,200 to 3,600 points just for the Dungeon Divers fragment event. And again, Dungeon Divers, we'll talk about that later on, just because if you did look at the fusion calendar, there are a total of 110 fragment points that don't include winning tournaments or getting placed in the top 30 to get those additional fragments. So if you're not going for those, which you shouldn't count on those, because again, anybody can snipe those. Sometimes competing those is just impossible depending on your account and what kind of resources you have saved up. So day two, aka April 5th. If you're just going for the fragment, you're looking to average 750 points a day. So I want to hit 750 with Fire Knight as well. And also the champion training is going around. So my goal to average right now is to average 3,000 points for champion training every day, and 900 every day for the length of the Fire Knight tournament. Now I'm going to be dumping extra energy tomorrow again for the dungeon divers, just to make sure I get that done. Moving on to day 3, we're going to have the champion chase starting. Champion chases are a lot easier to do than some rushes. They're a lot more accessible. If you have things such as champions that you saved up from previous fusions or from Doom Tower, any of those fragment summons that you can pull whenever you want, those are great. I'm also sitting on a Lydia right now as well, which if I wanted to pull that, I'll probably save that for a PR CBC, just because I get more bang for my buck, in my opinion, doing that. I do have shards saved up. Again, you can do that with mystery shards as well, assuming you have that much. It'll take a lot of mystery shards. But things like champion training is going to be great for the champion chase events as well, because every time you pull or get lucky and you get a 3-star from farming the campaign, it's great because that's 10 free points, right? That's a free mystery shard you essentially didn't have to pull. So there's going to be 2x event for that. Wait for that. Also, you can always just buy the champions from the shop if you really need to. I personally don't recommend that. That can be very expensive on your silver pool, which mine is looking kind of low right now, but once I do start spending the energy, will be recouping some of that. Now, again, you can use campaign farming, mystery shards. Make sure you're always trying to save and earn shards as a free-to-play player. That's something I got to deal with. I was in the top 1,000 big boy clan. I left it just because I took my break and I got burnt out in raid. I'm going to be, again, joining one of those top 1,000 clans in my cluster again, just because, wow, does it help a lot being able to farm those double chests daily from Ultra Nightmare when you're in a clan that's killing it. Right now I'm just in some random clan just so I can, still farm at least Nightmare at the very least. So do that, and then continue on with that. Remember, make sure you're setting those daily goals for the tournaments and the events you have, right? So moving on to day 6, April 9th, which is the next big part of it. You're going to have Spider/Dragon, and you're going to be, again, looking at another 900 points each just to complete the event. Again, it's probably going to still be at that 2,200 for Spider and Dragon. During those 3 to 4 days, looking at that, again, you'll need the 750 if you're just going for the fragment. If you want to complete the whole event, you're looking at 900 points a day for the duration of those tournaments. And then on day 9 is the next big one, where on April 12th, you're going to be farming more dragon. Again, you should be farming dragon with food champs. So there's going to be a champion training event starting around that time. So you want to take opportunity that dragon is generally one of the easier dungeons to farm. So you should be trying to farm dragon with food if possible. And then the next day on the 13th is the must-do Sun Rush. So the way to look at it is if you cannot complete the Sun Rush, you essentially cannot do the fusion, right? It's 15 fragments. Unless you're winning 5 fragments from a tournament, you cannot skip this. It is non-negotiable. You have to make sure you have shards. I do have 2 sacreds. I'll have more voids and more sacreds by the time. I'll have at least 2 or 3 more sacreds by the time that event does pop up. Maybe I'll have a primal if I'm lucky. But I should have enough just to at least reach a fragment. Probably won't be able to reach any legendary books or any other extra awards I might be looking forward to try to get at that time. But getting the fragment is the important thing. I'm going to be good on shards and be able to do that. And then day 14 and 15, we have the Dungeons Divers 3 starting during the later half of the dragon, and then it's going to be starting with the Ice Golem. And again, at this point, with those Dungeon Divers events, you should be looking to make sure, if you're doing the Dungeon Divers, you should be looking to make sure you're spending or burning any excess gems that you may have stored up, so that way you can make sure you get it done. Just because, again, the Dungeon Divers are the real killers of the fusion nowadays, ever since they increased it from being around 22-something, I believe, from 2,400 to around the 3,200 mark. It's getting a little ridiculous with the Dungeon Diver runs. Those are usually the killers. I remember I lost out on the Newt fusion just because I was busy with work and I wasn't able to farm the dungeons. And I was just a couple hundred points short of getting it in time, which is frustrating, but it happens. So that's pretty much it for the calendar. Of course, you also have the arena tournaments. Those are essentially super easy. Those basically do themselves. Those should never be the ones you fail or miss out on. And the other things we need to talk about are the artifact enhancement event or the dungeon divers events, right? Which ones should you skip? Can you skip them? If you can do both shard events, you can absolutely skip and not have to stress out about doing dungeon divers events. I would rather do the artifact enhancement events because I can go to the forge. I can sell excessive things that I have in the forge, like the 3 to 4 star gear, sell that. Another thing you can do is, which now with my level account, now that I'm at a point where I've over farmed certain dungeons such as Dragon and to some extent Ice Golem, to the point where the only pieces I'm taking are really excellent pieces that are legendaries. Right. Other than that, if it has any sort of flat HP, flat attack, flat defense on any of these pieces, I'm going to be selling them because I've already overfarmed the dungeon. I have a whole store of artifacts that aren't enchanted. They're just sitting in my inventory. They're not doing anything. I don't need to be overfarming those dungeons anymore. So I'm getting a little more strict with selling things, and that's going to help me make more money. So which dungeon diary should you skip? Whichever one. It just depends. Skipping this first one might be something a lot of players might want to do, just because it's stacked with champion training Fire Knight. A lot of people can't do Fire Knight with food. So looking to get both those done, it can be quite time consuming. This one's going to be probably the more likely one if people are going to skip a Dungeon Divers event. This is probably the one you want to do. Just because the other ones with the Dungeon Divers event, they're not essentially overlapping too much with the champion training event. Last but not least, so something such as planning for future fusions. You should always be planning for future fusions. Every single one of these tournaments and events, I'm always going to be trying to farm hero or food chickens, essentially, and storing them in my vault. So that way, the next champion training event, I'm ready for it. Anything to help make these events easier, right? So these 1,205 points that I got just from food that I've stored up, and I've still got more ready to go that I haven't gotten a chance to use it. It's always part of the planning that I've done weeks or months in advance every single time I'm doing a tournament. So where can you get shards? That's another big thing, because being able to do the Summon Rush and these Champion Chase events are huge. They're basically must do at these points just to be able to get these done. Try to join a big clan if your account's in a good place and you're hitting at least Ultra Sniper. Try to find one of those big top 1,000 clans. They have huge clusters that you can always look to join. Join those big clans. Make sure you're hitting Ultra Nightmare with those clans because they're killing it every single day. You're getting double chests. You're going to be sitting at least 6 sacreds, I promise you, between every single fusion. Right? So doing that in between fusions, make sure you're hitting Clan Boss or Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss every day with those double chests and Nightmare. You're going to be getting so many shards. You're never going to have the ability to say, hey, I can't do this fusion because I don't have shards. You're going to have shards. Make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're doing Doom Tower. You get shards from there. Hitting Doom Tower hard and normal, especially hard. That's going to be the place where you get more shards for your fusion. I'm going to get another Sacred and some more Voids from finishing up Doom Tower hard in this rotation. You can get shards from doing dungeons. There's a higher chance of doing it from doing the harder dungeons, right? You can get more shards from that. Again, that's really luck-based. Another thing is doing events. Do every event, do every tournament, grind those out. You can stack up your shards, things from the clan shop or the tag team shop. You can buy extra shards there weekly. Other things you may have questions about is what questions you guys might have about champs that I might answer. The champs I typically use for my dungeon farming for any of these tournaments. I used to use Mycelic Priest Ornn. I don't use him as much anymore. You'll be seeing one of the runs on him on screen at some point. Don't use him anymore. He's great for soloing and regen gear. He can absolutely do it by himself. I would have him farm Dragon 21 by himself. Easy, no problem, no issues. You can also do UDK and a poison set by himself. If UDK and a poison set is taking too long, you can always pair Ultimate Death Knight with any AoE poisoner, and you can do more or less all the normal dungeons as long as you have the right stats to resist and the right speeds. UDK was great progression for my account once I got him, and I got a second one, and I put that second one in that poison set. It helped tremendously with farming dungeons with food. Another guy that I used a lot, or used to use a lot, I not only use him for my spider runs, is a Kentum. A Kentum is great. He puts out those AoE hexes, so the AoE damage. He has a Giant Slayer passive where any poison ticks while he's out there drop by him. Actually, it's all poisons out there while he has that passive going. They will also proc Giant Slayer, so this is huge. It's huge in clearing waves. And then if you don't have any heroes that can solo any dungeons, find a duo on your account, right? Look for that. I'm not optimized where I can do all these dungeons super fast. I'm still optimizing them, right? I need to rework one of my full speed of Fire Knight 25 team because it's still moving relatively slow, but I know I can optimize to get it betterly done. Betterly, that's not a word. So yeah, check that out. If you have any questions, or you have any questions for me about me or my account, feel free to drop them down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Appreciate you watching the video.